All right, so welcome to our summer series of exploring the world of biblical women and the way that we can connect with each one of these women in our own lives. So, as a woman and as a teacher, I've always been fascinated by the women in the Torah, specifically because they're spoken about in a way that's meant to give us an insight into their lives. And I've always found it fascinating that many people look at the characters that take up so much of the Torah stories and feel as if there is such a strong emphasis on the men. And having grown up in going to a Jewish school and learning Torah from a young age, I was privileged to have, a level of Torah knowledge that always made me feel personally proud to be a woman and to recognize all of the stories of the women in the Torah. And when I was approached with this idea of doing the class for the lovely, wonderful ladies in this group, I was so excited to be able to share this topic because it's something that I'm extremely passionate about. And I love the historical, biblical perspective on womanhood. And we see this best by learning from the women that are in the Torah. So this series, which is titled Biblical Heroines, is going to focus on looking into the stories of the Torah, understanding the historical, textual, biblical context surrounding each woman, and understanding who she was, not just in reference to the story of the parasha or the story of the Torah that she lived in, but actually in her persona and the challenges that she faced and the struggles that she overcame and the lessons that she imparts to each one of us. And I look at it kind of like a toy that I used to have when I was growing up. Now, there were many different variations of this toy. So this might have been a toy that you played with as a child or maybe bought for your children or grandchildren. But when I was young, it was one of my favorite toys was this little cutout doll. It was this little plastic doll. And it came with a bunch of different outfits. And each outfit could be clipped on. And it also came with a bunch of different stories. It had a background, and you can kind of put the doll, dress her up, put her in a background, and create a whole individual. And I remember my favorite one was always the one with a wedding dress, and we used to set her up to be the bride. And there was another one where she was on a motorcycle, and there was another one where she was, a teacher in a classroom, and there was one where she was a doctor. And I loved playing with that toy as a child, and I let my imagination run wild. But as I grew into adulthood, I realized that that toy is really a reflection of each one of us. Because the same doll, the same core, was never changing. It was only the externals that formed the basis of what her perception became. And each one of us as women share the same core. And our core is what unites each one of us. Our clothing is different. And as we will see throughout history, definitely if we want to look at it from a fashion perspective, the clothing was very different in each generation. But even for each one of us, our clothing is different. Our family life is different. Our backgrounds are different. But at our core, we're all that same doll. Each one trying to do our best within the life that we have been given. And what's beautiful about our Torah and our heritage is that we can look into the Torah and glean insights from the women who shared that same core of Jewish womanhood, just like we do today. with different clothing, with different backgrounds, with different situations, but we can learn from their experiences to help us in our experiences today. So on that note, let's look into Bereshit, to the first parasha, the beginning of the 5 books of the Chumash, and see, where did woman come from? So I'm going to share my screen with you so that you can see the pasuk, the verse from the Torah inside. If you read Hebrew, you're welcome to follow along with the text. The English is on as well. And if you don't mind, when you see the screen, please just give me a thumbs up so I know that it's working well. If you see over here what it says, perfect, thank you. So this is in chapter 1 of the book of Genesis, verse 27, pasuk chaf zayin. And the pasuk says, Vayivra Elokim et ha'adam b'tzalmo, b'tzelem Elokim bara oto, zachar unekeva bara otam. And God created man in his image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. This is the first time that the word female is mentioned in the Torah. The word nekeva in Hebrew means female. And it's interesting because the first human that God created was both man and woman combined. In fact, our sages tell us the description of this human that was first created was the male form and the female form back to back. And it was one entity. God created human. God had created every other creation, starting with the solar system and the earth and the water and the animals, the insects, the fish, everybody. And then God created a human being. The form that God created human being was male and female. But that was not meant to last. Let's continue. Chapter 2, verse 18. Vayomer Hashem Elokim. And God said, Lo tov heyot ha'adam levado. It is not good that man is alone. It's not good for there to be just one human. Eseh lo ezer kenegdo. I shall make him a helpmate opposite him. God stated that it is not good for there to just be one human being. It's not enough for male and female to just be one. We have to be opposite. It's interesting that the Torah doesn't just say, I shall make for him a helper. God never said, well, man and female together doesn't work. So let's create a man and we'll create females to be his helper. That's not what God said. God said, it's not good for there to be one human. They need to be ezer kenegdo, which means opposite. They need to be two opposing forces. And so, continuing the story in Bereshit, we see verses 22 to 24. If you're following along, we're on the bottom half of the page over here. Vayapel Hashem Elokim tardema al ha'adam vayishan. God caused the deep sleep to fall upon man, and he slept. Vayikach achat mitzalotav vayiskor basar tachena. And he took one of his sides and he closed the flesh in its place. The first surgery. God formed a second human being. And as the phrase continues on the screen, we have, and God built the side that he had taken from man into a woman, and he brought her to man. And man said, this time it is the bone of my bones and the flesh of my flesh. This one shall be called Isha, a woman, because this one was taken from Ish, a man. And so we see this is the historical origins of the creation of a woman. Why did God create a woman? Because for a man and a woman to be one, nothing can be accomplished. We need man and woman to be opposites. And then they can be attracted. Now it's interesting because when we think of marriage, we think of a partnership between two spouses, two partners, any individuals. It seems like the epitome of perfection is that they should be one entity, one person. I remember when I was getting married and I was taking classes with a bridal instructor who was teaching me about Jewish marriage, and she was teaching me wonderful life lessons about marriage, many of which I never thought I would put into practice until I actually got married, and I certainly did. And she told me, 1 + 1 in math equals 2, but in marriage, 1 + 1 equals 1, because you create a whole new entity. And I thought, well, that's amazing. But a perfect partnership, whether it's a marriage, a relationship between parents and children, between friends, it's never always perfect. It's never just one. There's never going to be only one opinion, one idea. There are opposites. And in fact, God recognized that. And God said, I don't want one person that lives back to back. That's not a meaningful relationship. The basis for human relationships, which is personified in the first male and female individual that ever walked the earth when God created the world. That is the example of what every relationship should be. What should that relationship be? Two people who are opposites and who have to work hard to come together. And so God created Chava. Chava was the woman who would make Adam, into a man. Because without a woman, a man cannot be a man. Without a second person, a person cannot be in a meaningful relationship. Of course, we want to be in a good relationship with ourselves. We want to be comfortable with ourselves. We want to be independent. We want to be confident in who we are. But that's not a real relationship. We don't love ourselves because we're in a relationship with ourselves. We love ourselves because we are ourselves. We don't have to accept our other opinion and overcome the challenge of dealing with our opposite opinion. We have our opinion. Sometimes we think it's a good opinion, sometimes we don't, but it's just one. That's not a relationship. A relationship is when two individuals come together and give the other one everything they have, including their differences and their opinions and their different perspectives, and work together to overcome the challenges that come about when there's differences, to overcome the friction that can take place when there are two different people, especially two opposite people. As we saw in the Pasuk, God made them opposites. That's what a meaningful relationship actually is. That's what a real relationship is actually built on. And that is who Chava was. She was the woman, the one who was created to teach us how to behave in relation to the rest of the world. Adam on his own was just an individual. He couldn't have a meaningful relationship with other people. Chava, the first woman, was the one who understood what her task was. What was her job? To take challenging situations and make them something beautiful and something everlasting. Now, there's something unique about Chava. Chava is the Hebrew name for what we call in English Eve. Eve is the English counterpart name to the Hebrew name Chava. Anybody on here named Eve? Anyone here have the Hebrew name Chava or have a family member by that name? It's a beautiful name. But Eve is not the translation of Chava. In English, the reason why Eve is given as the name for Chava is because it comes from the word evil. Now, Eve is a beautiful name. It's certainly not an evil name, God forbid. But many people looking at the face value story of Chava in the Torah, which we will explore now, personify her as the evil one who made her husband sin. So what really happened? Let's look at the story. Adam and Eve were in the garden. Before Chava was even on the scene, God gave Adam very specific instructions. And if you think diets are a new fad, right in the book of Genesis, what you're allowed to eat and what you can't eat, it's a diet. What's the diet? You can eat from anything you want, but don't eat from the tree of knowledge, from the Eitz Hadat. That was the instruction. And Adam gave over this instruction to his wife, Chava. But he changed it a little bit. What did he say? Don't touch it. That was not what God said. God said, don't eat from it. But Adam was trying to protect her and thought, well, if she touches it, she might end up eating it. So he said, don't even touch it. Along came the snake. If anybody knows anybody who they call a snake, you know why. Because the sly, sneaky snake was trying to get Chava to sin. And so he pushed her up against the tree and she touched the tree. And nothing happened. Of course, nothing happened. There was nothing wrong with touching the tree. And she said, well, with a snake's voice in her head, what did she say? Well, I was told not to touch the tree. Nothing happened. So I guess I can eat from the tree also. She ate from the tree. And then she went and told her husband and they ate from the tree. And the result of that was that they were banished from the Garden of Eden. Now, if you look at that story like that, she is the source of all evil. The punishments that humanity suffers till this day, and every woman knows at every stage of life, from young teenagers all through womanhood, pregnancy, and every other part in between, women bless Chava at every painful stage of womanhood, because pain of a woman is caused by Chava's sin. The fact that man has to toil in this world and we don't live in the Garden of Eden where everything is perfection and harmony and enchanted bliss. Well, we were banished from that and now have to live a life of work and struggle. And we don't just get everything handed to us on a silver platter in the Garden of Eden. That is a result of the sin of Adam and Eve, eating from the tree of knowledge. And if Chava caused that, well then, doesn't it sound right that she is called evil? But no, 100% not. And in order for us to truly understand what she did, why she did it, and what she actually accomplished, we need to look at the Hasidic approach to this story, uncover the Kabbalistic insight into the story, and understand the deeper meaning of what actually transpired. So let's take this step by step. And I'll say this again, if anybody has any questions or wants to comment or interject, you have a mute button on your screen. It says unmute. Feel free to use it if you'd like. So this is the Garden of Eden. It's beautiful, it's enchanted, it's spiritual. There's an elevation of godliness that is completely unparalleled. The connection with God is so everlasting and bonded by the tightest of connections. And Adam and Eve can do no wrong. All they know is good, because the Garden of Eden was all good. The only thing they were not allowed to touch was the tree of knowledge. What was this knowledge that they weren't allowed to touch? What was the Eitz Hadat, the tree of knowledge? What was wrong with it? Well, the knowledge that God was shielding them from was the knowledge of what is the counterpart of godliness. All they knew was good. The knowledge was all that is evil and bad in the world. God did not want them to touch that or eat from that or to experience the immorality, the impurity, the negativity that is the opposite of godliness. Everything that God created in this world, he created with its counterpart. Everything positive has its negative counterpart. So if there's a high level of spiritual elevation in the Garden of Eden, the counterpart to that is low impurity. And God wanted to shield Adam and Eve from that knowledge. But Chava was the woman who came into this world because a relationship needs to have friction and struggle in order to become really connected, as we spoke about earlier. And she recognized that she didn't want for humanity to just be godly. And she also recognized that that's not really what God wants from us either. She recognized that there is a need for us to make choices from a place of knowledge. And so she actually did something that changed the course of events for all of humanity, but not because she made a mistake and we're still suffering the consequences. No, she made a choice and set in motion a chain reaction that we are still experiencing. What was this reaction that she caused? She tasted the knowledge. She became permeated with the negativity as well. And she brought the opposite of God, the opposite of godliness, the opposite of purity into the world. Now, this caused that we can no longer live a life of the Garden of Eden experience because we're not perfect anymore. In fact, after Adam and Eve did this sin of eating from the tree, they realized that they were not wearing clothing. And they were suddenly self-conscious of the fact that they were immodest. So what happened? Were they blind beforehand? Did they not realize that they were naked? No, they realized, they knew, but there was nothing wrong with that because the world was a world of perfection. It was beautiful because everything was perfect. There was no immorality or immodest thoughts or behavior that could ever permeate the mind of someone who's completely godly. So it didn't matter. Yes, Natalie.
I feel that the biggest sin, and we see that all through the Torah, was that they didn't listen to God. They disobeyed his commandment of, this is what I don't want you to do. And throughout the Torah, we see that with all the things that happened and the people that are punished because of that, with Aaron's sons that were not supposed to see God and they were killed. So throughout the Torah, you see that it all stems from God's telling us, I don't want you to do this. You're not listening to me.
Yes, I hear you on that. And can I circle back to your point in just a moment? Because I would like to share a different perspective as well. You are absolutely right. But there is a different perspective on this as well. So thanks for sharing that. Chava wanted to have a real relationship with God. She did not want to have a perfect relationship with God where she is one with God only. She wanted that we should be able to have a relationship with God that comes from choice. And as everybody knows, it is only a fair choice if you know all the options. Knowledge is necessary in order to make an informed choice. And so she wanted that our relationship with God as human beings should be able to be like a meaningful relationship that comes from choosing the other person while knowing the other options. Adam and Eve, when they were one being, they couldn't choose each other because they were attached to each other. It was only after they were separated and then God introduced them like a beautiful matchmaker that they were able to choose one another. The same is with our relationship with God. And we couldn't possibly choose God if we didn't know what the other options were. Now, that doesn't, God forbid, for 1 second mean the option of another God. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But the choice of following in God's ways or choosing not to. There was no idea of not listening to God or not following the spiritual guidance of the Torah and our souls before we had the knowledge from the Eitz Hadat. And Chava truly made that happen. And what set in motion was the pain and the challenges that came about for humanity, because God said, well, if you really want to have that kind of relationship with me, it's not easy. So the pain and the struggle that we go through in our lives is God's response to us saying, we want to have a relationship with God. We want to choose God. Well, if it's too easy, it's not a real choice. If you are choosing between a delicious, and I'm going to share what I choose, but substitute this with whatever you're craving right now, with a delicious piece of chocolate cake or something that I really can't stand, well, it's not a choice. Of course, I'm going to take the cake. Insert here pizza, chocolate, ice cream, whatever it is that is your fancy. If it's a choice between something that you love or something that you don't care for, it's not a real choice. But God said, you want to really choose? Well, then I'm going to make listening to me, doing the right thing, hard by giving us challenges that make it hard for us to make the right choice, because then we have real options. And then when we choose God, when we choose the right choices, when we choose spirituality, when we choose to listen to our souls instead of our instincts, we choose to listen to the godly voice inside of us instead of the selfish voice inside of us, then we've actually made a beautiful choice that actually warrants reward, that actually makes us deserving of blessings. In the Garden of Eden, there was no concept of reward or punishment, because if you're never being punished for doing anything wrong, you're also never being rewarded for doing anything good. So it was a very static existence. It was just doing. God wanted each one of us to listen, but not because we're forced to, because we choose to. Chava made that possible for us, which is why Chava was given her name. So we're going to look back into the sources and see, how did Chava get her name? Because the Torah does not describe Chava as evil. The Torah says where Chava got her name from. And in fact, we'll see that there's something very interesting about this name. Looking into our text over here, we're in Bereshit chapter 3, verse 20. Vayikra ha'adam shem ishto. Man named his wife Chava, Eve. Why? Ki hi haita em kol chai. Because she was the mother of all life. Chava received her name because she was the mother of all life. Now, I just want to share with you, this was before she had her own children. She was called a mother before she even had children, which tells us something very powerful and very profound. As we learn from Chava how to be a mother, we need to know that this role of being Chava, being a mother, has nothing to do with having biological children. It has also to do with biological children, but this particular lesson was because she was the mother of all life. What made her the mother of all life? Well, let's look at what biologically makes someone a mother. Biologically, what makes someone a mother is bearing a child. What makes someone a mother without being a biological mother? Nurturing a child. What makes someone a mother or a mother figure without having biological or other children? Being a nurturer. Being someone who cares for others, who takes other people and brings out the best in them, who is always there to transform the person that they are nurturing or the environment that they are nurturing into the best form of its potential. That's a mother. That was Chava. And that is something that each one of us can connect with. Amy, I see you have your hand raised. Can I take your question in just a moment? What makes someone a mother? When they take something or someone and truly bring out the best in them. On a biological level, the months of pregnancy, a mother is taking something that has the potential for a child, but is nothing without the pregnancy process, and transforming it into a child. A mother who cares for her children is taking a helpless baby and helping it grow, helping him or her grow and develop into a beautiful child. And as the role of motherhood shifts and changes throughout life, the mother of an adult child is no longer changing diapers or feeding children unless they, come for dinner. Then it's the role of encouraging and inspiring and being there to support. And whether it's a woman who has adult children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren, or a woman who is the mother figure to anybody else in her life, whether it's a human, an animal, a plant even, the nurturing nature of a mother is one that takes something and brings it to the best it could possibly be. That was Chava. And that was what she did in the world. She took the relationship between man and woman and made it into the most meaningful relationship. She took the relationship between man and God and transformed it into the most beautiful relationship. Amy, yes, what was your question before we move on? Please unmute yourself.
Hi, very fascinating. Now, I'm just curious as what would be the, why was she called Chava and not Chaya?
That's a beautiful question. I'm going to tell you that the origin name of Chava, the insights into that name would be an entire class on its own. So I'm not going to give you a full answer, but I will tell you that if you go onto Chabad.org, there is a fascinating class that answers that question. But I'm not going to give the whole class because it'll take all day. I hope that suffices as an answer, but if you're really interested in the etymology of the name, there's a fascinating class by Rabbi Raskin on Chabad.org that answers that question. I hope you'll allow me to give that as an answer because it's fascinating, but it is quite lengthy. Now, womanhood, Chava, the woman who brought every other woman forth. This was her role. And now we need to learn from her. We need to be Chava, because her story is not there simply to entertain us. Her story is not there simply for the sake of historical knowledge. Her story is there to teach us about the Chava inside us. In fact, the word Torah comes from the same root word as hora'ah in Hebrew, which means lesson. Everything we learn in the Torah is meant to teach us a lesson. So if every event recorded in the Torah is meant to teach us something, then certainly every personality in the Torah is meant to teach us something. So what is it about Chava that we can learn? How can we be like Chava? Well, God gives us the answer in the form of the mitzvahs that are entrusted to women. There are 3 mitzvot that are specifically entrusted to women. These 3 mitzvot are not exclusive to women. But when a woman does this mitzvah, the spiritual impact on the world is profoundly greater. And the gates of heaven open for a woman when she performs this mitzvah. So, the 3 mitzvot of the women, which I will share with you now. The 3 mitzvot are, number 1, challah. Making challah, which is the mitzvah of separating the dough when one makes challah, which includes as well all of kosher, is specifically entrusted to women. The second mitzvah is the mitzvah of nida. Nida is family purity, mikvah, Jewish marriage. The third mitzvah, which most are very familiar with, is Nerot Shabbat, lighting Shabbat candles, which encompasses all of Shabbat observance. Now, we know that Shabbat is not a mitzvah that is just for women to keep. Family purity is not a mitzvah that only the woman does. It takes 2 in a marriage. And challah is a mitzvah that anyone can do. But these 3 mitzvot were specifically entrusted to women. And the reason is because these 3 mitzvot reflect 3 basic elements of human life: food, work, and intimacy. Every person, in order to lead a productive, happy life, needs to either experience or have the experience of eating food, sustenance life, working, which means either in a job or just being productive, and intimacy, marriage, relationships, friendships, connection with other people. And these 3 mitzvot are connected with each of these basic human needs. Let's start with challah, kosher food. Every person needs to eat. You need to eat in order to live. Now, if anybody on here is a foodie, you really need to eat in order to live. But whether you're eating out in fancy restaurants or cooking gourmet dinners or just eating crackers out of a box, we all need to eat. It's just a basic human need. And it doesn't seem like such a holy thing. Every creation in the world needs to eat. Plants need to eat. Animals need to eat. People need to eat. Eating is such a basic human necessity. And yet there's a mitzvah. What is the mitzvah? The mitzvah of challah is the mitzvah of taking bread, the dough that we make into bread, and separating a piece for God. Before we eat the challah bread, we're saying that every food that we eat, we want to elevate to God. We want to give a part of it to God. And this encompasses all of kosher. What is the idea of kosher? That we take our food and we use it for a holy purpose by eating food that God instructs us to eat and by restraining ourselves from eating food that God forbids us to eat. That's kosher. Kosher takes food and doesn't make it just fuel our bodies, but actually fuel our souls. So the mitzvah of kosher, which is personified by challah, is the mitzvah that transforms something as basic as eating into something holy, into something spiritual, into something meaningful, into something that connects us with God. And kosher is specifically entrusted to a woman. The woman, traditionally, is the one in the kitchen. And that doesn't mean that men aren't in the kitchen or shouldn't be in the kitchen. But the mitzvah of challah is specific to a woman, that when she makes the blessing, the gates of heaven open for her prayers, for her requests, for her tears, for her joy, to share with God, because it is a time of building a relationship with God. And this mitzvah transforms food into something holy. The same is with nida, family purity. Human relationships are so basic. Intimacy is something that, specifically in the world, sexual relationships are considered something so low and so dirty even, which is so sad, because the Torah's view on intimacy is one of beauty and spirituality and holiness and godliness. It is the closest that we get to being like God, is when we create, either actually creating children or creating a soul, which every time man and woman are together intimately in the proper framework of a Jewish marriage, a soul is created. And when a woman immerses in the mikvah, she is transforming this basic human relationship that everybody does. Animals do, people do, everybody does to procreate, and transforming it into something beautiful and spiritual and godly that makes us holy in the process. And the mitzvah of mikvah, which we're not going to discuss at length here, is something that any woman in a relationship at any age, if married within the context of Jewish marriage, can experience. And it is something that transforms the home of the woman and something that transforms the family of the woman. Even retroactively, if the woman is married but had never gone to mikvah and is past the stage of her cycle, if she goes once to the mikvah, she retroactively brings blessings to her entire family, her children, her grandchildren, because that mitzvah transforms her entire marriage, her entire family into holiness. And the third mitzvah is Shabbat candles. What is the idea of Shabbat? That for 6 days of the week, we work. We do regular, mundane things. And then Shabbat is the day when we usher in a day of holiness. It is the day that we connect with God. And what brings Shabbat into the home? Lighting the Shabbat candles. Now, it's interesting to know that if there is no woman in the home, the man should light the candles, because every home should have candles lit. But the mitzvah is specifically entrusted to women. And when a woman lights Shabbat candles, the gates of heaven once again are open for her prayers, for her requests, for her tears, for her joy, for everything that she wants to share with God. We notice a common thread. When a woman is standing with her challah dough in front of her making the blessing, the gates of heaven are open. When a woman stands in the mikvah, the gates of heaven are open for her. When a woman lights Shabbat candles, the gates of heaven are open for her. Why are these the three mitzvot that are trusted to women? Because these are the three mitzvot that take something and transform it into something else. When we keep kosher, all of our food becomes holy. When we observe the laws of family purity, all of our marriage and our relationships become holy. And when we light Shabbat candles, our entire work week becomes holy. Not just that Shabbat is the one holy day of the week. We actually transform the entire week and make it holy, which is exactly what Chava brought into the world. Chava created this legacy of women who are nurturers, who are transforming the world into something spiritual and transforming ourselves into something spiritual. And with each of these mitzvot, we
I have the
can
apples. They're not
be
here.
like Chava. With each of these mitzvot, we can be the Chava in our lives. And so when we encounter a challenge, pain, a difficulty, we can look at Chava and think, well, it's your fault I've got pain, because before that, there was no pain in the world. It's true. If you're looking to blame, she's a good one to blame. But that's not the perspective that helps us be happy and productive. What is the perspective that we can learn from Chava about challenges? That the challenge, the pain, is an opportunity for growth. It is an opportunity for our best self to shine through the challenges, because we can build something even greater because of it. Now, we ask God and we pray that we should never experience challenges, and we should never experience pain or struggle or sadness. But we also know, and I'm sure that all of you know more than I do, that life is full of challenges, that life is painful, but it's also beautiful. Because Chava gave us the ability to see both, to have access to the tree of knowledge, to see both sides. And therefore, when we make the choice to focus on the positive, to focus on our spirituality, a choice that each of you has made today, just by virtue of the fact that it is 12 o'clock midday and you are sitting in a Torah class. That's a choice that you have made, that Chava has allowed you to make. That you can choose to permeate your life with holiness, that we can choose to instill in ourselves and our loved ones and our children and our grandchildren and our environment holiness, godliness, spirituality, positivity. And that is something that Chava gives us the power to do as well. So in those moments of struggle and pain and challenge, we can channel our inner Chava. So Chava has this beautiful outfit. Remember the cutout dolls we spoke about? Let's make one of Chava. Chava's outfit, Chava's clothing, Chava's perspective is one of transforming every situation with the nurturing touch of making something better. And to bring back to what Natalie said about how the problems in the Torah come from when people don't listen, it's so true. But now that Chava gave us the chance to choose to listen, when we overcome the urge sometimes not to listen, that's what makes it so much more meaningful, so much more powerful, and something that we have earned. So Chava's clothing, we can put on ourselves. And even though our backdrop, and backdrop is a good word to use when we're on Zoom, and each one of us has specifically our own backdrop, from those of us who are reclining comfortably or sitting or in the kitchen or wherever you are, for those whose cameras are not on, or for me sitting in my car. The backdrop of Chava's life was vastly different than the lives we lead now. But the core of who she was and the life that she chose to lead and the clothing that she wore, we can put on ourselves as well. And we can don the cape of Chava's superpower and fly with it. You know, it's interesting because Tanya, the Hasidic book that was written by the first Rebbe of Chabad, the book of Tanya is the foremost book of Hasidic thought. And Tanya describes the word levushim. Levushim are clothing. What are the clothes of a soul? The clothing of the soul is the Hebrew words machshava, dibor, and maaseh, which in English are thought, speech, and action. Those are the clothing of our soul. And we choose how we want to dress our soul. What kind of thoughts we want to dwell on, what kind of speech we want to use, and what kind of actions we want to do. And Chava's clothing, her thoughts, speech, and action, give us a wonderful example of what we can be for ourselves. And Chava did this with beauty and with grace and with true kindness. She was the mother of all life because she brought out the best in everything in the world. And we can do that as well. We can be the Chava in our own lives. And sometimes we can be the Chava that somebody else needs us to be as well. So on that note, I'm going to challenge each one of you. And I'm challenging myself as well. Find a moment sometime this week, before next week. Now, I teach 5th grade, so when I give them homework, I expect them to do it. No one's signing your homework sheet over here, don't worry. But it's a challenge that you're welcome to choose. Find a moment this week where you can be like Chava. And if you'd like, share it with us next week. I really look forward to hearing it. If anybody has any questions, we have a few more minutes. If anybody has any questions or anything they'd like to share, please do. I would love to continue this discussion if anybody wants to share anything. Don't all answer at once. Susan Dory Resnick. Yes, please unmute yourself.
I just wanted to tell you what a wonderful teacher you are,
Thank
and
you.
your explanations make a lot of sense. And I took 4 pages of notes.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Well, I do want to say that while I appreciate your feedback, these are not my insights. These are all based on Hasidic thought and the teachings of the Torah, the teachings of our sages, and the teachings of Hasidic philosophy. But I appreciate that. And wow, I'd love to see your notes.
Beautiful,
Yes.
Beautiful thoughts. I really love this.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Does anybody have any other questions?
No question, but also a thought. This was a wonderful program, and I'm going to share this with my daughter because she goes to women classes in New Jersey, and she goes to a Chabad rabbi there, and she goes to several of these women classes. So I'm going to share mine with her.
Please
And
do.
I've really enjoyed this. And now I have a different perspective. Thank you.
My pleasure. All right, ladies. On that note, then, I will wish you all a wonderful day. I look forward to seeing you all next week and continuing to share this beautiful journey with you. And next week, God willing, we will continue in the stories of the Torah, moving on to the next woman and understanding what clothing she wore and how we can dress ourselves in that as well. Have a wonderful day, ladies.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Beautiful lecture.
Thank you.
Thank you.